Report. Salcedo out, Higbie in. See you tomorrow.
Hey, welcome to Frontlines, 5 o'clock here on the East Coast. Here are the top 5 stories we didn't want you to miss. The Texas House is gearing up to finally vote on a newly drawn congressional map that could give Republicans 5 extra seats. We're going to keep you posted on how this vote goes, but it's probably going to pass. Plus, Vice President J.D. Vance and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth met with National Guard troops in Union Station as they crack down on crime in our national capital. Now, they bought and ate lunch with the Guard members because they're actually pretty normal guys, while protesters outside chanted, "Free D.C." I'd say free it from crime, which is what Trump's doing right now. And according to reports, America's top spy agency is cleaning house. Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, sending out an email announcing it will right-size its overall footprint by cutting almost half of its employees. That's awesome. That's after President Donald Trump directed members of the deep state to be rooted out. It's a good start. Plus, all eyes are on Hurricane Erin as it starts to turn north along the East Coast, bringing deadly rip currents and massive waves along it. The dramatic aerial footage shows the storm surging through homes and a motel in North Carolina's Outer Banks. And go woke, go broke. After more than a decade, the CEO of Target is stepping down as the company faces slumping sales and backlash due to its retreat on DEI. But first, more mortgage fraud? If Democrats wanted to play lawfare, they should have probably been squeaky clean themselves. Let's do this. What is it with Democrats and lying on their mortgage applications? Allegedly, of course, at this point, obviously. Another person, this one appointed by Biden to the Federal Reserve Governors Board, has been referred to the DOJ for the exact same thing Adam Schiff and Letitia James are being investigated for. And the left, who cheered on, totally erroneous lawfare against Trump for, the better part of the last decade. They are apoplectic over actual, legitimate investigations.
This is a new line of attack against Democrats from this administration.
New line of attack? I hate this about the left. We have the documents that show these people simultaneously claimed primary residence in 2 places at the same time. They haven't been convicted of anything, but anyone above a 3rd grade reading level can see what is going on here. It's not a line of attack. It's you guys wanted to play this game, you weren't squeaky clean yourself, and now this is happening. Lisa Cook is now also facing a call from Trump, obviously, to resign in the midst of this. Now, to me, this is just another reason to completely abolish the Federal Reserve today and pretty much any other day that ends in Y, because it's neither a federal agency, nor does it actually have any money in reserves, but I digress. But for this woman, of course, the left is screaming, wait for it, racism. She was the first black woman ever appointed to the Fed board. Great, who cares? So does that absolve her of being investigated for apparently lying on a mortgage form? No. This woman is now the 3rd Democrat to be exposed for potentially lying on a mortgage application. According to the Housing Finance Agency Director, Bill Pulte, who we've had on this program, they believe Cook falsified bank documents and property records in order to have more favorable loan terms. Here's the receipts. This is not hard to track down either. June 28th, 2021, she took out a $203,000 mortgage on a property in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Now, the loan was conditional that she would occupy the property as her primary residence for at least 1 year. But 2 weeks later, she took out another mortgage for $540,000, 700 miles away on a Georgia property with the same stipulation to be the primary residence. How can you live in 2 places at the same time? You can't. Keep in mind, Letitia James, who is also being investigated for the exact same thing, has scrutinized the Trump kids' business activity in New York, even beyond the lawsuit that she brought against them. Look, she's been looking into these guys because they now claim primary residence in Florida because they got the hell out of New York because of her. but they still do business in New York. And you know that if she thought for half a second that she could prove that they spent 6 months and a day in New York rather than in Florida, she would prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law for falsifying primary residence documents. You know it. And let me tell you, look, I am friends with these guys. I know for a fact that they make double sure that they spend well over 6 months and a day in Florida and not in New York for that reason. So it's just so crazy to me that these libs, 3 and counting, with allegations of lying on mortgage forms and potentially falsifying loan documents, thought they could get away with this. It's like the greatest irony of all here, too, is that one of these women, the one I'm talking about now, who recently voted to keep interest rates high, meaning did not want Americans to have lower mortgage rates, may have lied on a mortgage form to get a lower mortgage rate. Pulte noted this.
This lady, I don't understand how she can be in charge of setting interest rates for our country, and here she is potentially lying on her applications to get better interest rates.
Now, here's what gives Trump a lot of leverage here. We know he's been looking for ways to pressure and influence the Fed to lower interest rates. We already had one woman abruptly step down, which allows Trump to appoint someone that will be friendly to his economic plan. This could be a second. And this is making libs super nervous right now because they want interest rates high to hurt Trump's economy, which maybe they don't realize this, or maybe they just don't even care. It's like TDS on the 9th degree. That would hurt all Americans, but, they don't care. But according to the Banking Act of 1935, quote, the president shall fix the term of successor to such member as to not exceed 14 years, unless sooner removed for cause by the president. Keyword there, for cause. If Pam Bondi decides to investigate this woman, which she hasn't formally opened yet, I believe that would constitute for cause. Yes, you are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. However, in government jobs, you can be fired for the loss of faith by the executive, which would be a cause.
If you commit a crime and you have a reasonable suspicion that somebody's committing a crime, that is cause. I mean, I don't know what cause is if that's not cause.
Also, look, this woman was appointed. Kamala Harris was the tie-breaking vote to get this woman on the Fed. It was 50-51, all right? She was not that popular. Also, this is not at all, they're probing another property she has in Massachusetts, too, right now. So this is not like an isolated incident. We don't have any further info, but we'll get it. But you want to know why people hate politics? It's because of stuff like this. Now, I explained the other week that New York, they slid in like a cool $10 million into their budget and their state budget from taxpayers to cover potential legal fees for Letitia James should she have any, legal battle with Trump. But Schiff, who is, he's only a few weeks ahead of this Fed governor's case right now himself. He has now filed a political committee to pay for his legal fees, which got me thinking. I said to myself, now, look, I've run for Congress once or time because I'm pretty familiar with these campaign finance laws. So I said, I don't think you can do this. And a quick little internet search, sure enough, I was right. 52 U.S. Code 30114, Section B, Part 1. Quote, a contribution or donation described in subsection shall not be converted by any person to personal use. It goes on in Part 2. A contribution or donation shall be considered to be converted to personal use if the contribution or amount is used to fulfill any commitment, obligation, expense of a person that would exist irrespective of the candidate's election campaign or individual duties as a holder of federal office. Now, Schiff's political fund is a tax-exempt organization under the FEC. Buying these homes and claiming you lived in both simultaneously was not a political decision. It had nothing to do with your official duties, Adam. Your decision to claim 2 primary residences in order to obtain more favorable mortgages was not in your official capacity. You could argue that you bought the house because of your official capacity, but not lying on a mortgage form, allegedly. Nor does it have anything to do with your re-election campaign. And I would urge the Justice Department to look further into this as a matter of additional violation of the law. Joining me now, the woman who initially uncovered Adam Schiff's claim of 2 primary residences, financial investigator and real estate mortgage expert, Christine Bish. All right, Christine, you figured this out on Schiff. Good for you, okay, because I support this. But also, this is not like, we have to say allegedly and all that stuff, but this is pretty black and white at this point.
Yeah, this is what I do for a living. I've been doing it for well over 22 years. And I'm telling you, as experienced in the mortgage industry and real estate industry, worked on, title paperwork, I've got him nailed dead to rights. What he did was fraud. And, I'm going to break a little story right now, a little piece of this story on Adam Schiff. One of the lenders, a person who worked for one of the lenders, has come forward to identify themselves and to me personally, out of Michigan, where this lender is based, and they want whistleblower protection. That's something I cannot offer them. But this person has come forward, has put it in writing to me that Adam Schiff was very aware that he was committing mortgage fraud.
Wow. I mean, that is
And
actually...
You're the first one to get this.
I mean, look, that's pretty big news. I'm sure he's sweating bullets over it, which is why he opened a political action committee. But, you have Letitia James, which we've covered extensively on this show. Mm-hmm. Now you've got a governor of the Federal Reserve who controls interest rate. It's like, I mean, let me just ask you this for disclosure purposes. Is it even possible for somebody to check the box by accident? Like, is that even feasible?
Absolutely not. And when you go through, remember, it's not even the loan officer or the individual. There's also underwriting that goes through it. And they check your ID, they check your paperwork when you go in to sign those mortgages. Now, every one of these people, the three people you have on the screen, they are educated. They understand what perjury is. And on the bottom of every one of those mortgages that they signed, on the bottom of the applications that they signed, there is a little disclosure that you're signing this under penalty of perjury. And more important, on the notes that they signed, it is under penalty of perjury. It's not there for decoration. It is a bold warning. You should be telling the truth, and there are consequences. And it says it right on the paperwork. Schiff's a lawyer.
Yeah.
No. James is a lawyer. Yeah, this lady, she's on the mortgage documents. Lisa Cook. They know better. There is no ignorance.
But that's the thing.
And
Now,
go ahead.
You've seen this in your career for a long time.
Yes, I have.
You've seen this. Have you ever seen anybody go to jail? What kind of consequences and sentences and fines and fees? What are the consequences of this for us normal rubes like that are protected on high?
Okay, so yes, people do go to jail, and these are felonies. This is bank fraud, this is wire fraud, tax fraud, insurance fraud, perjury. In the case of Adam Schiff and his wife Eve, who also signed these documents, now we have possible conspiracy to commit fraud. Now, the lenders, the individual loan officer that does this, who took the application, who originated the loan, they are subject to prison time and fines as well. So are the big mortgage companies that did this, and even the title companies that insured it. Because when we go to title and escrow, that's an insurance policy. An insurance policy that all of the information, it's true and correct. So where we're just looking at these three people, when you do a mortgage loan, there are a lot of people behind the scenes who should have been dotting the I's and crossing the T's. And the whistleblower that came forward, that person actually lost their job for challenging Schiff putting false information on the application. That's what the statement is. I haven't verified it.
Wow. Okay. That's insane to me. So now okay. I mean, we have to, obviously cover down on this, but let's talk about the Fed. All right. So they are, obviously in charge of mortgage rates, but there's like the implications of them not lowering mortgage rates after they had somebody who may at this point have lied to get favorable interest rates. What is the not only the social, but the mortgage fault and the full faith and credit of the Fed? What does that do for them nationally?
Well, it affects people personally. right down to, the family looking for their first home. Your interest rate can determine what house you have the ability to buy. Even a 0.25% difference in the interest rate can determine what neighborhood you're gonna be living in,
where your kids go to school,
how much your payment's gonna be. So this does have not just local implications, but when we start looking at it nationally, as someone in the real estate industry, it's killing the ability for people to move, to afford a new home. I know California. I've got people who have interest rates at 3%, and they want to leave California. And this isn't just Republicans, this is Democrats. They want to leave, but why would you trade a 3% mortgage for a 6% mortgage somewhere else?
Exactly. Well, Christine Vish, great work on this. We appreciate you joining us very much. All right, coming up, Jasmine Crockett goes on a racist rant. Wait till you hear this one in Culture Clash. But first, the EPA worked against scientists trying to protect East Palestine, Ohio, after the train collision, and there's emails to prove malfeasance. Next. We never forget about the little guy here, and new emails show that after the train derailment incident in East Palestine, when there's just crap everywhere and chemicals, the Democrat-controlled EPA, for the environment, worked against scientists who were testing the soil and air outside of their control. So the self-proclaimed party of science denying science. After the EPA said, hey, look, everything's fine for these residents to return, these independent scientists found high levels of dioxins in the soil, which can be poisonous side effects, and they're part of industrial chemical production, okay? This is basically harassment. The EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, instead of protecting the environment and the people in it, was putting these scientists under surveillance. Why does the EPA have drones to follow scientists around? But they do. That's why the post office has a SWAT team, too. That money spent to stalk these scientists trying to protect people could have been actually used for, cleanup. John Jordan, attorney, and Emily Coop, investigative reporter for the Daily Caller. John, I'm looking at this and I'm like, legal problems, ethical problems, moral problems, and just this is insane.
Yeah, all of the above, Carl. Who'd have thought that the Simpsons movie was actually going to turn out to be a documentary? At any rate, what we have here is the government, especially under the Biden administration, needed to control what science was. They needed to control the narratives that were dubbed scientific for political purposes. We saw this during the pandemic. We see this with economists and any other class of experts. They need to be able to control these things for political purposes to make sure that scientists don't engage in wrong speak. And that's why they did. It was a whole of government approach, part of they're building the scaffolding for a coming leftist tyranny. No, it's shocking to me. All right, Emily, speaking of science, the man who self-proclaimed himself to be like the Jesus of science, Dr. Fauci, you actually broke this story for the Daily Caller. Senior American intelligence officials hid classified intelligence from the president and the public that COVID-19 actually came from a lab. They hid it from Trump. This gave Fauci and his minions extreme influence while they were able to silence scientists and crush people's careers. Thank God you broke this.
Yeah, I think there's a pattern here that if you're scientifically right in a way that the government doesn't like, you're retaliated against. But if you're scientifically wrong in a way that the government does like, then you're rewarded with millions of dollars in grants and career advancement. And what I found is that our own intelligence community's elite scientists in the DIA and the Department of Energy and in the FBI had intelligence pointing to Wuhan's constellation of high-risk virology labs as the origins of COVID, and they were systematically suppressed in favor of Fauci and Fauci's handpicked scientists who said that was a conspiracy theory. And they used really ridiculous arguments in this infamous proximal origin paper. It was basically an op-ed that said, we think this is impossible. Meanwhile, the scientists who wrote that paper were saying privately that they thought it came from a lab. So again, there's this pattern of if you're right, but the government doesn't like what you're saying, you'll be suppressed. Yeah. But if you're wrong in a way that Fauci and deep staters like, then you'll advance.
Yeah, and Fauci still has his penchant over this. All right, John, I want to get to this. Another Islamic jihadist who was appointed by Joe Biden this is a position, a senior director for intelligence at the National Security Council, has been ousted thanks to Laura Loomer. Now, this is the same Security Council that covered up things that Emily was just talking about with Dr. Fauci, and it wasn't a bat in a wet market. Thankfully, due to Laura Loomer, his security clearance was revoked by Tulsi Gabbard. Now, this is Mayor Bitar, has a long history, and also associations with terror, starting with his time at Georgetown University when he was a part of the chapter of Students for Justice in Palestine, which has documented ties to the Islamic terrorist organization, including Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Muslim Brotherhood.
Yeah, Carl, all of this really started actually in the Obama administration. The government, the deep state, became a nesting, if not breeding ground for people with far leftist ideologies and anti-American proclivities. People that thought America had more to apologize for, a weaker America. We were looking at everything was through the race and a lens of apologia. And tell you how extensive this is with the EPA story we just talked about and Emily's work with Dr. Fauci. This is everywhere inside the government, and this has to be hunted down one by one. And I fear that the administration's work in this regard is just beginning.
Yeah, and apparently this guy was in the Russia collusion case documents, too. I don't know. We got to leave it right there. John Jordan, Emily Kopp. Emily, great job uncovering that one, by the way. All right, coming up, the deadline for states to comply with Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy's Safe Roads Initiative quickly approaching with safety on the line. Will states step up and actually do their job, protect pedestrians and, fix roads and stuff? All that and more in our Culture Clash. So on July 1st, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy launched the Safe Roads Initiative, giving state governors 60 days to identify high-risk arterial segments and intersections using safety data and submit it for evaluation by the Department of Transportation and Federal Highway Administration. What the hell does that mean? Okay, this basically means you got to clear out crosswalks and other places of high travel of distracting artwork. This includes painting gay pride flags on the road, okay? Outside of funding reconsiderations, though, there's not really an exact mechanism to, force these people into compliance for state-funded roads. Plus, this initiative does align with the Highway Safety Improvement Program under Title 23 of the United States Code. That deadline's like 2 weeks away, okay? So we'll see if they're going to get rid of the gay pride flags on the streets. Virginia Allen, host of the Daily Signal podcast, and Tony Katz, host of the nationally syndicated and well-named Tony Katz Today. All right, so Virginia, that one wasn't lost on me, Tony. Virginia, this is my problem with the gay pride flags on the road, because you can burn an American flag, according to the Supreme Court, as a freedom of speech, but if you drive a car on a road that happens to be painted gay for that gay pride flag, you get, charged with a hate crime for doing a burnout.
So then why put them on the road? That is the big question. Where people drive and walk. And the whole thing is ludicrous. But look, I think there is a real safety concern here. It is distracting. But also, why do we need to have our streets make political statements? Of course, I live in Washington, D.C., or just outside Washington, D.C. We have the massive Black Lives Matter painted very, very prominently on the streets of Washington, D.C.
It solved all of racism, Virginia.
Well, apparently, if you ask Jasmine Crockett, that's what she would say. But, it's like, why are we elevating these groups that, took on millions of dollars? Where did those millions of dollars go that Black Lives Matter collected?
By large mansions.
But we keep celebrating them with things like painting their name on our streets.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Tony, speaking of Jasmine Crockett, the Westchester private school educated grad, calling for white people to basically be pushed out of Texas. Roll this.
When it's election time, I want them to be so mad that they did all of this, because we have people coming from the entire country to Texas to make sure that this little scheme that they tried to pull, where they were just going to steal and diminish the voices of Black and brown people, I want us to be so loud that they actually go running and trying to figure out what's that little racist town they all hiding in, and some, Missouri, Arkansas. I think they all ran to Arkansas. That's where they need to run off to. That's how I want them to feel after this election.
She's just mad because it might be her seat that gets eliminated. But, Tony, could you imagine if, pick a Texas, like Pat Fallon telling black people to get out of a state?
Yeah, if we're going to play the game of where did all the racists run to, I'm pretty sure they just ran to Illinois. If that's the game we're playing, Representative Crockett, I'm all in. I live in Indiana, where this is a big redistricting conversation here. And when it first happened in Texas, I was a guy who said, well, if Texas wants to do this, but I don't know who else is going to want to do this. But when Gavin Newsom says we're going to gather Democrats together and just get rid of Republican seats, she doesn't care about who's represented by those seats at all. Well, then this is the political game. And I favor the special session being called right here in Indiana to discuss this out. And I favor Republicans all across the country recognizing that if you don't understand that this is a fight, just listen to Representative Crockett. Okay, the idea that she's educated makes people laugh. The idea that she's the leader of the Democratic Party is, of course, insane, but this is where the Democratic Party is right now. But she's telling you what the game plan is. So Republicans, here's your option. Fight or lose. It really is that simple.
Yeah, you have to pick every battle because the ones you don't pick, you lose nowadays. All right, Virginia, it looks like freedom of speech. We covered this a little bit yesterday with a totally different story, but here's another one. Roll this.
One can, we will bacon. Why? Because I like bacon.
So the guy, a 23-year-old single father, arrested while protesting at a site of a proposed mosque. He just shouted, "I love bacon." Now, shout out to Don Keith for getting us this clip. They arrested this dude for saying, look, I love bacon too. You gonna come arrest me if I go to the UK?
I guess so, probably. Neither of us should go to the UK and eat bacon. Good news for pigs everywhere, but I mean, this is tragic for all of the UK.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think the US should really take this as a warning sign. I mean, look, the UK no longer has free speech, judging by this situation.
Because they gave up their guns.
And recent events, they've lost it. It's gone. And the US needs to take note, because if we don't guard it, if we don't protect it, and, you know, good on President Trump for the course corrections he has rapidly made in the United States over the past 6 months. But without those corrections, we can very easily wind up exactly where the UK is right now.
And canning, obviously, people like Nina Jankowicz, who the Ministry of Truth or whatever she was. Tony, real quick to you. Bed Bath & Beyond, way beyond going back to opening stores in California. They're basically like, dude, it's not economical. They're saying they're going to open no more retail stores in the entire state. It's not about politics. It's that we just can't do business there because you make us lock everything up and there's too much crime.
If you talk to progressives right now, they'll take a look at Gavin Newsom's X account, Twitter account, and they'll say, my gosh, look at these great tweets. Oh, he's really getting one over on Trump. The business community is speaking to you, to your policies, to your thought process, to your theories, and they're saying, nope, this doesn't work. We have to go. This is an incredibly important moment that shows how disconnected Democrats are from the reality of every day. You can't grow businesses if businesses cannot grow. But mean tweets, that's what they're finally in favor of. My gosh, we have come full circle.
Yeah, and this is so funny. Brian Krasenstein was also, he posted a meme of Gavin Newsom with a gun and a flamethrower saying MAGA is mad at Gavin Newsom because he's showing them how stupid Trump sounded for the last 10 years, fights fire with fire. And I'm like, dude, Gavin Newsom literally just let his state burn to the ground. So not a great analogy there. And he tried to ban basically I don't know, he banned all the guns over there.
You had a good response there with that. You know, you're celebrating guns and fire. That is not what Californians are interested in hearing. All the posturing, and yet rebuilding in the Palisades. Just ask Adam Carolla.
13 houses, I think, built. Virginia Allen, Tony Katz, appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
All right, folks, more good news on the Newsmax company front. Late Tuesday, Newsmax, we reported the companies saw its key broadcasting sector revenues grow by 28%. The company saw an overall revenue growth of 18%. This is really big news. These are huge numbers, indicating the company, we're still on the right high growth trajectory, and it's thanks to you. Earlier this year, the company went public, as you know, on the New York Stock Exchange. We wouldn't let you forget about it. Of course, we're glad to be, living up to our shareholders' expectations. So to get the full second quarter earnings report, just go to newsmaxinvest.com, and you can read all about the information and the SEC filings there. Check it out. It's all because of you guys, and from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate it. Coming up, Alligator Alcatraz, now get ready for Cornhusker Clink. DHS expanding detention centers with brand new facilities in southwest Nebraska. Those details are awesome, and they're next. Well, the Trump administration is partnering with the state of Nebraska, opening up a new migrant detention facility up north called the Cornhusker Clink. Now, they're going to expand detention beds by 280. I think they should round up to an even 5,000. But DHS Secretary Kristi Noem warning illegals in the region could very well end up there, saying in part, quote, to help remove the worst of the worst out of our country, if you are in America illegally, you could find yourself in Nebraska's Cornhusker Clink. Avoid arrest and self-deport now using the CBP Home app. So we've got Alligator Alcatraz in Florida, the Speedway Slammer in Indiana, and now soon to be the Cornhusker Clink in Nebraska. They're just cranking these things out. It's great. What state next? Well, let's find out. Former acting Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, Chad Wolf. Chad, I mean, they're putting up these things faster than I think Obama put up the cages for the kids.
Well, that's exactly right. And look, I think what this tells you is that there's a number of governors that want to support President Trump and his administration in making sure that they remove dangerous individuals out of their communities. And so you see governors in Florida and Nebraska, Texas, and many other states putting resources behind this, saying, let us help ICE remove dangerous individuals from our state by putting them in detention and then removing them from the country.
Well, and it works. I mean, like point blank, we're down at, give or take, rounding right around zero people coming into the country illegally, which is crazy. I mean, it's a crazy statistic. All right, so check this out, though. Freshman Representative Suhas Surabana or whatever his name is. Look, he doesn't believe, obviously a Democrat, that those who have entered the U.S. illegally have committed any crime. Get a load of this.
Saying that if someone is here illegally and then commits a crime or is arrested for a crime, saying that we should have the conversation about whether they should be detained and whether they should be still in the country. I think that that's different from going up to people without telling them what they've done in masks and putting them in detention facilities. And I think the people that are being approached did not commit any crimes.
Chad, if I kicked in his front door, started drinking the milk out of his fridge and kicked his dog, do you think he'd want me to go to jail?
Well, again, this is the far left, right? Just like AOC, Mamdani and others, and Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi before them. This is what they believe. They don't believe in immigration law. They certainly don't believe in immigration enforcement. And he's just wrong, right? These are individuals that broke the law. These are individuals that have come into the country illegally, and ICE is removing them. So he's wrong on the substance. He's wrong with the American people. The American people don't support what Joe Biden did and opened up this border for 4 years straight. And so he really needs a civics education on the law. It's unfortunate. He's in Congress. Should probably know the law before you become a member of Congress. And that's unfortunately where we see the left today.
Yeah. Well, Kristi Noem also announced that the entire southern border wall will be painted, or at least the parts that are built, and they're building more now, a lot, actually. They're going to paint it all black, okay, because in the sun, it's going to be like 4,000 degrees, and they say it's going to further deter people. I'm like, yeah, they're thinking.
Well, President Trump talked about this during the first term, and I was part of painting some of that wall black. There's a number of reasons. There's operational reasons why you would want this as well. But again, I think this is what a lot of people underestimate the president, and we've seen him turn out to be right time and time again. You had people saying you could never build over 450 miles of that border wall system, which we did under the first term of the Trump administration. They will build hundreds more this term of the Trump administration, deploying a lot of technology. So again, I give President Trump a lot of credit. He's the only president in my lifetime that's actually wanting to secure that border, and he's got a vision to do that.
It's really amazing. Real quick, sir, if there was ever a case for immigration and like not taking people from the Middle East, I would plead people look at Denmark. In 1992, Denmark passed a law granting asylum to 321 stateless Palestinians who had arrived in Lebanon seeking refuge. Now, more than 30 years have passed, and here are the statistics. Look, 204 of the original 321 were convicted of crimes. 71 sentenced to prison. 176 are now living on government support.
Yeah, look, we've seen this, unfortunately, in Western Europe for a period of time. I would say over the last decade, whether it's France, whether it's Denmark or Sweden, we see what uncontrolled immigration looks like. And again, unlike what we're trying to do here in the U.S. with President Trump and his others, is making sure that these individuals want to assimilate and become a fabric and part of the country. What you see in the EU and in Western Europe is they don't want to do that. And you're seeing all sorts of problems, some of which you just mentioned, they're having to deal with today. And it's obviously the wrong approach. So if you want to see what's wrong with unchecked immigration, just look to Western Europe over the last decade and do the opposite here at home. And that's what the Trump team is doing.
And leaders, once they get out of office, they're like, man, I really regret doing some of those things. Too bad they made the bad decision while they were in. Chad Wolf, appreciate it, sir.
Thank you.
All right, coming up, summertime sadness. Soon Congress is going to return from their summer recess and get back to work, if that's what you call what they do there. But did they forget about the fact that they have like 30 days to come up with the entire country's budget? More on that in a sec. So once again, here we are. The government is going to run out of money on September 30th. And even though Congress has been, they've been on the summer recess, they have known this date is coming, and they're in for this rude awakening every single time. I mean, like Mike Johnson, can we get a status report on this? What are you guys actively doing? Because every single time this happens, they're like, oh, here's the date. You get up to the last minute, nothing gets done. We get another crappy CR where you fund a bunch of junk that doesn't need to be funded, and here we are again. How about you just write the bill to fund the government ahead of time? Matt Foldy, editor-in-chief of the Washington Reporter, and Audrey Fahlberg, National Review politics reporter. All right, Ashley, I look at this and I'm like, you guys know the deadline is coming. How do you screw it up every time?
That's right. It is crunch time for Republicans here, who obviously have a rare trifecta in government, so it's up to them to get this across the finish line. And I wouldn't expect too much of an appetite for bipartisanship on the Democratic side. Remember, Chuck Schumer earlier this year got a lot of flack from his own party for caving to Republicans and convincing some of the Democrats to get a funding bill across the finish line. And this is a time when Democrats, especially activists, Democratic grassroots types, are not eager to see Democrats working with Republicans in any fashion. And of course, Office of Management and Budget Director Russ Vought has said, now is the time for cutting as much spending as possible. Yeah. So this is going to be a kind of nitty-gritty process, and it's not going to be very fun or pretty when they get back.
Well, Audrey, I think you nailed that one on the head. But Foldy, there's like some more nonsense outside the U.S., okay? Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro says that he's going to deploy and activate 4.5 million militia members. I can't imagine how well-trained these people are in that country. Because of outlandish threats, he's calling it, by the United States. Like, we put 3 destroyers out there because he's trafficking like massive amounts of narcotics, and he's all PO'd about this stuff. 4.5 million is literally like 1/3 of the able-bodied people within the age group out of his 32 million population in Venezuela. You really think he's got that many?
Honestly, the people, Carl, first off, I watched a video you posted on Instagram of you on the treadmill, and I was shocked to see you're somehow over 40. Like, give me, again, one Carl Higbie versus 45 million of these Venezuelans. But think about this. Trump talks about how Venezuela and countries like Venezuela have literally emptied their prisons out when Joe Biden was president and just sent their worst criminals to the United States of America when our border was wide open. So even if he has 4.5 million people, what are they going to be? Are they going to be like 90-year-old men? You're going to have an army of Venezuelan Joe Bidens? We're not invading Venezuela. I don't know what this is. I think that he does see pressure from the Trump administration. Remember, the State Department just said again that Maduro is not the legitimate president of Venezuela. So I think this is a lot of bluster. But when push comes to shove, my God, honestly, I could probably take on 4.5 million Venezuelan, elderly, decrepit men and young child soldiers.
But Audrey, I mean, keep in mind.
But I'd like to have you with me, though.
Yeah, look, I'll do it. Don't tempt me with a good time, all right? But Audrey, this is the same Venezuela who the Biden administration was buying oil from that's 4 times as dirty as the oil we have here, while we were saying, oh, we got to save the planet.
That's right. And because it's an oil-rich country, it also, exports oil to a lot of our adversaries, particularly China. I think you mentioned Marco Rubio in the State Department. Marco Rubio is the person to watch here. In recent months, he's continued to call Maduro a narco-terrorist, a horrible dictator. It's no surprise here. Trump has been very tough on drug traffickers this term. It's giving the foreign terrorist organization designation to drug trafficking groups like Tren de Aragua, which is a Venezuelan drug trafficking gang. And obviously, in recent weeks, also there were several news reports about how he gave the green light for the Pentagon to use military force against a lot of these, drug cartels. So that's something to watch.
Yeah, you want to coke up Americans? Here's 3 destroyers. Have a nice day. Foldy, here's another one from the Wall Street Journal that Elon Musk, his pledge to start a third party apparently is over. He was like, you know what, J.D. Vance is probably going to be the guy, and I don't really want to damage that relationship with him. So, you know what, I'm back on the MAGA train.
Well, that's smart. I do want to say I was a little behind in the times on this. I finally watched the Sicario movies, and I think that would be a great kind of Trump border policy of just killing all of these people, which is, as Audrey said, basically what's happening. But Elon Musk, I think, listen, we're all smart on this panel. Elon Musk is smarter than all of us combined. I think he realized that the writing is on the wall here if Democrats take power. And Carl, we've talked on your show about how libertarian parties, and especially this America Party, would basically siphon well-intentioned votes away from Republicans to the direct benefit of the people who are setting Teslas on fire. So this is both, I think, a politically smart move for Musk. Democrats hate him, and also a business move. If Democrats are in charge, good luck to Tesla, good luck to SpaceX, good luck to these amazing companies that he's done as the modern-day Iron Man, the real-life Iron Man. He realized that it's for him at this point. He went all in with the GP. It would be like George Soros saying, okay, you know what, all of a sudden, sorry, Democrats, I'm a Republican now. I don't think that we'd welcome him after the destruction that he's wreaked on our country.
No way I'd welcome that guy or his son. Matt Foldy, Audrey Fallberg, we appreciate it very much. All right, before we go, high-speed chase, sort of, down I-84. You wouldn't believe what the cops caught next. Hey, you definitely don't see this every day. Dare I say it's rare. Firefighters and Pennsylvania State Police troopers were chasing down a rogue cow down the I-84 East. I mean, this cow didn't look like it was actually moving that fast, but authorities were able to wrangle this cow safely off the interstate and onto a side road. This cow didn't cause any injuries, or they didn't have to close the highway or anything. I guess this is normal in this kind of area, but no word on how this happened, but rest assured the authorities are grilling associated parties. I wonder what the law for me as like a motorist, like if I'm driving by this thing, can I just like pull over and like butcher up this raw cow on the side? Like, if I accidentally hit it, like, could I have kept the meat? I don't know. I'm curious to the roadkill laws in Pennsylvania. Maybe I accidentally swerve out. I don't know. Ooh, that's like 900 pounds worth of steak right there. They should have called me. I would have caught it. Got a good piece of steak out of it, because being vegan is not the way I do things. All right, Greta's next, folks. Stick around. We'll see you same time, same place tomorrow. Have a good one.
Hurricane Erin is unleashing the sea on the East Coast. Beach closures, evacuations, and flood warnings are now in effect from the Outer Banks up the Atlantic coast all the way to New England. We're going to bring you live to North Carolina, where a state of emergency has now been declared. Also tonight, wait until China sees this one. The White House has an official TikTok account.
Too late. I come.
He loves the Constitution. He fights for what's right. He hates the bad guys. He's a freedom warrior. He's your freedom warrior. Watch Carl Higbie every weekday on Newsmax.